Welcome to Bridge Out Ahead, the podcast where we dig into what's under construction in life, business, and community. I'm your host, Bridger Hopkins, and today we've got a really exciting guest. But first, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. However you're watching or listening to this, if you could go hit like, subscribe, follow, whatever it may be, it really means a lot to us, and it helps us reach more people who might be building something themselves. Again, hit like, subscribe, follow. We really appreciate it. And today, we're sitting down with Brett Mohler, the owner of Yeti Earthworks. He is known for his earthwork, of course, patios, retaining walls, and maybe even slightly better known now for his wildly funny and engaging social media videos, of which he directs, writes, stars in, and is doing most of the stunts. So today, Brett, thanks for coming in and sitting down with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, just kind of getting into your background. How, were you always planning to play in the dirt, if you will?
I did a lot of dirt playing when I was younger, but I always kind of felt like it was destined to be. There was more out there that I wanted to do rather than just work for somebody. And growing up, I always liked to know how things worked. I would always tear things apart, put them back together, add things to my model cars, or again, playing in the dirt and stuff like that. So it's always been a mindset that I don't want to go out and work for somebody else. I want to do my own thing and create my own destiny, if you will. So
yeah. When again, what were some of your hobbies and stuff? Even growing up as a kid, what were you to?
Gosh, I always liked working. I tried sports for a while, and it didn't really suit my needs or kind of fulfill that gap that I had. But I always, my grandpa was over the road trucker, so I'd spend a lot of time with him, going on road trips with him and delivering paper. And I'd spend a lot of time with my mom out at the power plant in Cohasset. She put in 40 years out there, and if she didn't have a babysitter, she'd bring us with. And not something you can do it nowadays, but we'd go and dump train cars or ride in the loader and things like that. So it was always, real world work based. I didn't spend a lot of time with sports or, building model airplanes or collecting trains, anything like that, like a kid would do. It was always like, I felt like I was 20 years ahead of my time focusing on that stuff, but
Working.
yeah.
That's a lot. My son, he's a worker. Mm-hmm. He's like 6 years old, and all he wants to do is work.
Yeah, that's like my nephew. I mean, he's got the ultimate playground because he'll come out, he'll call Ashley, my wife, and what's Uncle B doing? What's Uncle B doing? I want to go work. So I'll bring him with me, and he'll ride in the dump truck or he'll ride in the excavator. And I mean, he knows all the names. He knows the dirt, the rock, the this, that, everything. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's fun to see some of that stuff take root at a young age. Again, looking back at when you were younger, what did you think you were going to be doing when you grew up?
Honestly, I thought I was going to be an astronaut.
Okay.
I'd look up in the sky and be like, man, I want to be up there. And even going back just a few days ago, my wife asked, if you could be anywhere in the world or if you could do anything right now, what would you do? And it's like, I want to be in space. I like that feeling of seeing what's out there and seeing what's next and whatnot. And of course I had some aspirations of, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a pilot, I want to be a firefighter, this and that, but there are a couple of those things came to fruition. I was on Cohasset Fire Department for 8-10 years. And, but yeah, that's kind of where it ended up.
So, looking at, schooling, what did you end up going to school for anything, or what trajectory did you take there?
I've got two older brothers, and one had passed away when I was 15 years old. And so I missed so much school. I got held back, and I actually turned 18 in 11th grade. Well, I mean, school wasn't for me. I spent more time in the hall room than I did the classroom. And so as soon as I turned 18, I got a job working pipeline construction, and I left town. And I went to work. I did that, and I did that for 15, 16 years, always being away from home. And that's kind of what it was a good job. I liked doing it. I was good at it, but at the end of the day, after 15 years, it's like, where is my home? I want something else besides living in a camper and living on the road. So that kind of drug me down quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. When you look back at having lost your brother, did that impact your direction or the momentum that you're going in with your life?
Yeah, I think it did a little bit. It was obviously very hard. I looked up to my brother quite a bit. After he had passed, I had sort of started to get into a little more trouble, and I don't know if it was attention seeking or what it was, but yeah, I got into a little bit of trouble with the law. Maybe stole some cars and did some things, and ended up in juvie and in jail once or twice. But yeah, so that did kind of take a toll. And looking back at it now, I think it directly correlates with Cass passing, and then me, I guess, seeking attention or trying to fill that void with something else, and yeah, it was tough. There was a little bit of a tough time there.
So you mentioned, after, at 18, just kind of heading out to the, was it pipeline oil fields?
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily oil fields. These transmission oil and gas lines, they run from state to state. And so you're not in one particular area. You kind of transverse around the country, and A to B essentially is what it is.
So, and you did that, 15, 16 years. What made you want to change? Because, that's a good long time. You're probably pretty comfortable in doing what you were doing. Why make a change at that point? Yeah.
So it was after that long a time period. I wasn't necessarily bored, but I was bored with doing all of that. It was taking a toll on my mental health, because I would essentially be home to see the snow melt and then be home to watch the lakes freeze. Summertime, the most beautiful time in this area, I was gone on the road working West Virginia, Oklahoma, all kinds of places.
And that's pretty much go time. You know, you got to work while the weather's nice.
Yeah.
Cooperating.
Yep, for sure. And so, like you say, I had a very comfortable job, and I could sort of take time off basically whenever I wanted, within reason. But it wasn't scratching that itch where, going back to my childhood, I felt like I was destined for more. Like I wanted to do more in life. And so I called my wife, and, I threw this idea at her, and I was sitting in a hotel room in Wisconsin, and we had a rain out. And so sitting there thinking, and it's always kind of been in the back of my head, obviously, that I wanted to do something else. And I said, hey, what if we were going to start like a landscape excavation company? What do you think? And she said, if you're going to do that, you're going to have to be all in. And so I was like, I guess that's the green light. So I started shopping online, and this was around just after COVID. So equipment was kind of tough to find. They didn't have a lot of it, but I called and found somebody that had the size mini excavator I was looking for. I was like, yep, save it. I'll be there. I'll pick it up. I told my current employer, said, here's what I'm going to do. Sorry to leave you hanging, whatever. And they said, you'll always have a spot if you need one, and go essentially just go chase that dream.
Yeah, that's pretty scary, actually, having that moment where, okay, I'm changing. And not only that, you're changing directions, which is huge, but then, like, okay, how am I going to do that? I'm going to go, push dirt around. I'm not going to do that by hand. I got to actually go spend money right away too.
Yeah.
So you start moving in the opposite direction financially, like from the get-go.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we were working on the road, you make good money, and you pay several things off, and then you jump into this realm, and it's like, man, everything I want to do is $100,000, and the next step is $200,000. You feel like you're playing Mario, and your high score just keeps going up and up and up. But it's scary, because it's a big world out there, and nobody really teaches you that. I didn't have I didn't really have any mentors leading up to that said, hey, first you need to do this. When you get that done, do this. And then when those two are done, you do this. I didn't have that. So I was running and gunning from the get-go. And as soon as that first job sold, it was like pulling 8-10 stumps or something at a resort in Cohasset. And as soon as that estimate came through, and I don't even remember what the dollar amount was. It was like $1,500, $2,000, something like that, and came through on QuickBooks. And Ashley and I were headed somewhere, and I showed her, and it was just like, oh yeah, we made it.
I'm a real business owner now.
Yeah, this is it. Here we go.
Big money.
yeah. And looking back at it now, it's like, man, you got lucky on that one.
Maybe one of the biggest resources or that a lot of business owners can say is that they have a supportive spouse or significant other who can really buttress that, and maybe even elaborate a little bit more there, where she said, hey, you got to do this, but you got to be all in.
Yeah. So I didn't quite know what that meant. My wife, Ashley, she is very direct. When she wants something, she goes after it. Like, she's got a plan, this and that. And I'm not so much that way. I'm kind of willy-nilly. I'll figure it out. Like, I've fallen into a snake pit and I'll figure out how to get out of it, where she'd be like looking on the map. Hey, there's a snake pit here. Don't walk through that. And I'm just...
You're like, I know, I found it.
Yeah. Hey, I'm down here. Get me out of here. But yeah, the support that she gives and friends and family is huge. That's a big backing, because there's a lot of dark days where, bills are piling up and you got 7 families to feed on payroll, and you got to feed the machine there. So it's, you better have a good system in place to have that, just for your own sanity and moral support. Have those people there is huge. Starting
out right away, how were you, marketing yourself? Let's take a step back even. Yeti Earthworks. How did you come up with Yeti Earthworks?
It was just catchy to me. I feel like I've always been kind of clever in, say, like brand associate. Well, let me back up. I've always been clever and kind of witty and humorous and quick with that stuff. And that's another story we can get into, but just the name association with the brand, somebody's going on the boat. Hey, grab my Yeti. Hey, Yeti this, Yeti that. It's a very big name, coolers and cups and things like that. So every time that name would come up, I thought, boy, that'd be great if my company could somehow be associated with that. And that's kind of how the name came about.
And with that too, kind of defining that brand as well. How did you come up with, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing?
As far as like the actual work itself.
Yeah. Because I think that's probably one issue that I see a lot of business owners run into is, okay, what do we do? Yeah. Because I can do a lot of things, but it's hard to do a lot of things well. So niching down into what, okay, this is going to be our bread and butter. Yeah. How did you land on that?
Yeah. So it comes from my background. In those pipeline days, I started out laboring on the ground, and then I moved to being an equipment operator. So running equipment was, second nature to me at that point. So I knew it had to be something with moving dirt, using equipment, operating equipment, things like that. I wasn't going to go tile a shower because I couldn't, I'd have them all over me by then, and I'd look like the tile man or something. But so I knew it had to be moving dirt, something with equipment, and then also solving somebody's problem. When you look at your backyard and it's like, what are we going to do? We got all this space. What can we do? That's been the biggest thing when we get on site and you talk to them. Well, what can we do here? What should we do? They really look to you for advice. Then right or wrong, you better have an answer on what you're going to do and how you're going to take control of that site, take that over and give them something nice. So those are kind of the things that I had in my back pocket that I knew would help this this mission out is I knew how to move dirt, knew how to run equipment. And at the time, I thought I really knew how to problem solve. But, going down the road, it's like going back to starting a business. There's a lot of problems to solve. And there's not a rule book or a playbook telling you do all this thing, you know. But
one thing that I've found in whatever I do, the people who I like to work with, I always say I like solution people, because there's lots of people who will point out the problems.
Yeah.
But it's great to have solution people. And so that's something that I've tried to emulate in my business whenever I can, is like, okay, I want to see the problem or identify with somebody what their problem is, and then come up with the solution for that. And that's a great way to be, because you can go and be like, well, where do you want me to push the dirt around?
Yeah.
Like, that can be really intimidating for somebody who doesn't know, like, okay, this is what I need.
Yeah.
I just know I have an issue. And if you can fill that gap, that's where so much of the value you can provide is.
Yeah, for sure. And, I'll say it all the time. It seems like on every job, like, hey, I know this looks like a bomb went off in your yard, but we know what we have to do. Here's the steps we have to take and why we are doing this, why we are.
It gets worse before it gets better.
Oh yeah. Yeah. 100%. But just educating, to your point, being having that, solving that solution, or having that solution to solve that problem, I think is huge for homeowner comfort, because they're spending a lot of money on some projects. And if you're not out there, taking the proper steps and doing what you should be doing and to give them a long lasting project, you're not only putting a bad name on yourself, but the industry as a whole, because when they call somebody else to fix the problem you messed up, they're going to have that.
They're already mad at the next guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're going to think, boy, are we going to go through this again? And so that's huge.
Can you walk us through one more time what the timeline was for your business? You said it was just after COVID, and maybe even walk through your equipment, because I feel like that's a pretty good indicator of what you're doing. Like, okay, I have my first piece, I can go do X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, well, if I want to do the next thing, I'm going to need something else. What did that timeline of growth look like for you?
Yeah, it was short. It was a lot shorter than I anticipated. And I was told by several people when I started, stay small, stuff to stay small, like focus on that. And, I listened to it, but when I heard it, it was kind of like, toss it over my shoulder. I'm going to do what I want to do. And
I'm going to go find that snake pit.
Yeah, right. I'm going to go fill that snake pit in, because I'll circle back and fall back into it here. And so starting out, we had the mini excavator. Shortly after that, I believe it was the next year or either late that year, we had picked up a skid steer from McCoy, got that, and it was like, well, we need a way to haul the dirt. And so we picked up a little single axle dump truck that we called Dumpy. And that was the next year. And then after that, it was, hey, I need another excavator, but this one needs a rotator and a grapple to set boulders on a boulder wall. And, the way I pitched it to my wife is, this can do the work of 2 or 3 guys. We're going to eliminate 2 or 3 guys and just be more efficient. And that never happened, obviously. Yeah. But, so we got into that. And then unfortunately, my Uncle Mike passed away, and he had an excavation septic company, and he had a couple larger dump trucks. And so kind of running the numbers on that, I probably didn't need 2 of them, but it was like a package deal, and I knew the maintenance of them and knew he took care of them. So then sold that single axle and bought these 2 bigger dump trucks, these triaxles, and that was 2 years ago. And since then it's just still been growing. It's when we had everything in the yard at our shop in Cohasset and everything was parked there, it's like you look across at it and you're like, man alive, what did I do?
When in that timeline, when did you feel like, okay, I think I've actually got something going on? Because right away it's scary. No matter if you're getting jobs lined up or not. you don't have a background or a history to show like, oh yeah, I can make it through these slower times, or I know it'll pick up again soon. How, at what point did you know, okay, I've got something going here?
Yeah, I don't know when the exact time was, but I think a time that sticks out to me is when people actually wanted to come and work for you. Were reaching out and wanted to come and work for your company. It was like, I kind of had this imposter syndrome, like, who'd want to work for me? I don't want to say I don't know what I'm doing, but like what makes me so special than the bigger companies in town? And these guys are coming from the bigger companies in town, and it's like, well, yeah, maybe we got something here. And we picked up a few key players, and it was just off to the races from there.
Growing can be one of the most difficult parts of business as well. Bringing on more people, bringing on more equipment, you're coordinating more schedules. That's a lot more maintenance even to keep on top of. How did you scale?
We just bought more stuff and got more jobs and hired more people. And like I say, there was no rhyme or reason to why we did the things, or no playbook. It was just like, I myself was like, well, if we want to do this, we need this. If we want to do this and be more efficient, we need this. Looking back at it now, I think I would have scaled a little differently, just because it had gotten pretty high there for a while, as far as the overhead. So I feel like there was a time where I really over leveraged myself and just trying to chase down each avenue. Like, okay, I want to do boulder walls. Okay, I want to do site prep. Okay, I want to do septics. And each piece has different equipment, and different
skill sets. People who have different abilities. You have to roll into that.
Yeah. So, and hiring the right people too is, like, I knew it was going to be tough to find A-level person, because, like, the A-level people are already doing their own thing. They don't need, you're going to get the B's and the C's and the D's, and it's your job to make them the A's within your organization. And I got lucky and picked up a few A's right off the gate, and they've taken it and run with it. And so much so that they know the next steps, and they bypass me with, scheduling and things like that. They'll call them, hey, where are we going next? Hey, we're done. What do you want us to do next? And I'm like, I don't know. I thought that was going to take you longer than that. But so
creates other problems that you get to deal with.
Yeah, for sure. And as much as I want to be in the field, you can't. Like, you have to be in the office, behind the scenes, selling jobs, meeting with customers. You don't get that luxury of, okay, I want to take a break and go run some equipment and have a little stress relief and all that. It doesn't stop.
And that's one of the funny things about, like, owning a business or operating a business. Maybe that's a better way. You start by operating a business.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I like running equipment and I'm pretty good at that. And then all of a sudden it starts to take off, and you're like, oh, now I get to do paperwork.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm not doing the dirt work as much anymore.
Yeah.
So your world shifts, big time in that, especially with the growth.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I recall, it must have been 2-3 years ago. I remember seeing your stuff around town. You guys have done a really good job, I think, from right away, like wraps and logos. I think we were even at some sort of like equipment expo, and you guys were there, and kids could check out the equipment. And so that's maybe when I first became aware of you guys. So I've seen you around, but it seems like in the last maybe year, maybe even more so, 6 months, it seems like there's been a shift in what you guys are doing, especially in your marketing or being in your presence. What big changes have you made in this recent, year, 6 months?
Yeah. So we joined a group, and he's since become a good friend, Logan Sendel, and he has a company called Blue Collar Business Accelerator. And you join this monthly group, and he's got tons of videos that he expects you to watch. We have Zoom meeting every week, but he basically boils it down to brand awareness, making it so people know who you are, what you do, where you're at, and hammering those details out. So when somebody Googles your name, you look like a legit business. People know who you are. You're doing functions in town. You drive through town and somebody knows who you are. They wave, things like that. So his group really, it's basically just brand awareness, marketing, and then it gets into some leads and things like that and how to close sales. But ever since we joined Logan's group, close rate has been through the roof and lead flow has been through the roof. And, I can't thank him enough for taking us on and sending us through all that.
And then with those changes, even, being able to close more business, all of a sudden you go from like, oh, we threw out some estimates or quotes, and then like, oh, we actually got them.
Yeah.
And how you address that and process it through your business, move from the call or message online to, getting an estimate out, completing the work, billing. For somebody who's never done that before, how did you guys figure that stuff out?
Yeah, so people would call, and sometimes I'd answer it, sometimes I'd leave a message. It kind of depended on what I was doing, trying to answer them. But they'd leave a message, and I'd go back through the end of the day, I'd call them back, write down what kind of project they were thinking, their address, email, things like that. Schedule a site visit, go out, take some pictures, notes. And I started doing videos too. I found that to help a lot. Instead of just a picture and you go back through your phone, and I've got 500 pictures of my nephews on there. So I'll go right to the videos now, and it's me explaining to myself what needs to happen on this project. So when I'm sitting down doing the estimate, I'll go back through, watch the video. Okay, they wanted this, this, and this. And it's in my own words. I'm not looking at a picture wondering, well, what did I take a picture of a hydrant in a yard for, and come to find out it was they wanted pavers around it, or they wanted this or that. And so that's helped a lot. But so from there, then I'll kind of go to the drawing board and, sort of price out the materials for what we're going to do for that job, how we're going to accomplish it, where the materials are coming from, kind of where it fits on our schedule. And then I'll type up the estimate, and then I'll do a Loom video where it's a face-to-face interaction. It'll be off my camera on my computer. And basically what that does is I think it gives some comfort to the customer to where you're not just firing off an estimate at 2 a.m. and hopefully they look at it. They can click on this video and watch you explain the job, watch you explain what materials you're going to use, what steps you're going to take. And then from there, it's just, click approve, or they can email back or call if they have any questions. And then we'll schedule that into all our workflow for the year, which can be kind of challenging with weather and whatnot, but yeah, that's kind of basically how we do things. And, it's a sore subject because we've had so many leads that it gets tough to wrangle them all up. And there's been a couple times where I've slacked and haven't gotten back to somebody right away, or haven't gotten an estimate out. And I truly feel bad for it, but it's that playbook of trying to manage your time and do this and that. And I'm trying to split it between the field and the office. And we're at the point now where I don't think I can do that because we are kind of lacking in that area. And that's a fault I hate to admit, but it's the reality of it, so it's kind of a bummer. But
and with the growth and success too, it can be hard as you're building something to also realize, hey, I have to let this go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because it can even be something that you enjoy.
Yeah,
a portion of the job you like, but how have you dealt with that, stepping back in some of those areas?
Yeah, it helps having those, again, grade A players on your team to where you can take that time, and it's tough to relinquish that trust and knowing that they're going to do the right things and call you if they have questions. But it's something you have to do because you can really limit your growth if you don't do that.
Right.
It's
empowering people is a huge part of
Yeah.
being a business owner.
Oh yeah. And if you don't want to give that trust up, well, don't be asking why in 6 months your business isn't growing, because that will be the reason. If you don't, delegate some work to some guys and trust them to take it to the next level. So
When you're growing like that too, you have those things that you give up. You're like, I'd like to keep doing it, but I can't. And you have the things that are like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have to do this anymore.
yeah.
What was one of the things that you were glad to give up, and one was like, I have to give this up even though I like it?
The one thing I was glad to give up, I don't know that I've really had anything that I've just been super happy to give up. I think I've kind of fought all of them tooth and nail. Like, hey, I can still do that. I got time to do that. But if I had to pick, it would be the dirt work side of things, and in moving the earth and hauling material and stuff like that. I'm glad that we have the right people in place that'll get taken care of. Without that, if I had to do all that still and do all the paperwork, and we wouldn't get anywhere.
Right.
I'd be in the snake pit still, just hanging out.
And I don't know if this is something that you've gone through in your business accelerator as well, but a lot of times as you're kind of forming your company and coming up with your unique proposition or your guarantee or whatever that is, what have you guys done, or where are you trying to position yourself in the market? What's your unique proposition? What sets you guys apart?
Yeah, so I think what sets us really apart is the fact that all of our hardscape work has a 10-year warranty. There's nobody I know around here saying, hey, this isn't going to fail in the next 10 years. And I'll put a guarantee on it that if something does happen, after all, it's dirt, we don't know what's under it, but our work will be good for 10 plus years. And in that 10 years, if something does sink or settle, give us a call. We'll come out and, we'll pull the pavers out, we'll pull the wall out, fix it, reinstall it at no cost. Just because we are that confident in, the materials we use for the base and all this and that. And so I think that's one thing that really sets us apart there.
That's a pretty big guarantee to have, especially in northern Minnesota, when you're talking about some serious freeze and thaw.
Oh yeah.
And that probably builds a certain level of trust right away with your value and your value proposition.
Right.
Like, hey, these guys are going to stand behind what they do.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes I feel like Tommy Boy with the guarantee on the box, going to the brake manufacturers. But we've been pretty fortunate so far that there's been a couple minor things where, say, like the poly sweep in the flagstone joints doesn't set up right, and we'll have to go out there and chisel it out and reapply some poly sweep. But it's nothing that is going to set you backwards a whole lot. But unless if you installed it wrong from the get-go, that's where you could get into trouble. You're not going to set a 10-year warranty on something that you just threw together and you have to come back and replace the whole patio. We're talking small areas that can be easily fixed, and that's kind of how confident we are in our prep and base and all that. So
now we're kind of getting towards the end here. I want to roll into our toolbox takeaway section here. This is where we ask for some insight that you might have, whether that's a recommended book or a quote or a mindset even that you've found really helpful through everything that you've been working on. Mm-hmm. What do you have to share?
Yeah, so books I've read would be like the 5 a.m. Club, Buy Back Your Time was a big one. Just
Dan Martell.
Yeah, Dan Martell putting systems in place to do the things you like to do, delegate the things you don't like to do. And he's got a scale on there to, where you figure it all out, and here's what you can afford to buy back. Here's what you can afford to hire to get that time back. Those are good books. There is Alex Hormozy. He's got a few good books that talk about, $100 million leads, $100 million business model and stuff like that. And they're easy to read. I'll be laying in bed and I feel like I got a kid's coloring book because it's like double spaced and sure it might be 900 pages. Too. Yeah. might be 900 pages, but there's like 6 words on each side, a couple pictures, and I'm just like eating it up. And Ashley's reading some fantasy novel next to me that's super small, and she's been reading for 2 weeks, But yeah, and as far as quotes, there was one I saw one time that it was something like, lesson, you either increase your sacrifice or lessen your desire.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's really important, and it goes back to what Ashley said at the start of everything. If you're going to do it, you're going to be all in. So if you're not willing to make those sacrifices and get up 7 days a week and do this and have the hard conversations, then you need to lessen your desire, and maybe 9 to 5 is for you, because
Right.
it's not always easy. And so,
Yeah, that's a great mindset to have, because you can't want it all and not do the work that it takes.
Yeah.
It's not because you are up at 5 and you're out
Yeah.
late and you're sending invoices and
Oh, yeah.
quotes at 2.
yeah. I've spent a lot of late nights and a lot of early mornings, but yeah, and kind of going back to what you said, another little funny story, if you got a little time. So I didn't finish high school. I went to work and never looked back, thought, I'll never need that diploma, whatever. Well, I had another opportunity in 2021 to work at home, to work in Hill City at Enbridge down there.
Okay.
And interviewing process went great. They want to hire me right then and there, just my experience, things like that. Well, all that stuff gets sent to corporate, and they're like, hey, you don't have a diploma. You didn't finish high school. And I'm like, oh, that's got to be a mistake or whatever. I for sure. She's like, no, we already called the school. They have no records. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, what do I got to do here? So that happened on a Thursday. They told me that. And this was like my dream job. Work for them right in town, home every night. And so that happened Thursday. Friday, I started doing all the online GED tests. I did all that, passed on Sunday, and I called them on Monday. And I was like, hey, I got here's all my stuff. I passed all my tests, got my GED. They're like, yeah, sorry, we already hired somebody else. And
Oh, man.
like, oh, here we go again. But it's funny how that works out, and here we are today. So
yeah,
it was kind of neat.
One of those trajectories, or, that's kind of the premise of the show even, is the detours that you end up on, the bridge out ahead. You would go a different direction, and really it maybe gets you to where you're needing to be going, even though you didn't know that.
Right. And that was definitely a bridge out ahead moment, because that was like the diploma was the bridge. I didn't have it, and I was Dukes of Hazzarding off into the abyss, without that. So, but I got my GED, and now I have it, and no shame in that. And that's part of life and part of the detour, like you say. So
yeah, and then take it to that next level.
Yeah. It all worked out.
So one other thing that we talked about beforehand, and I want to share with everybody, you guys are going to be running a promo for our listeners, our viewers. So if you guys are seeing this, if you made it through this whole conversation to the end here, if you're thinking about an outdoor project for 2026, which is coming up pretty quick here.
Very quick.
Yeti Earthworks is going to offer $500 off on up till through the end of January 2026. Get on the schedule, give them a call. $500 off. That's a great deal.
Yeah, for sure. It does go a long way with certain projects. So if you call, get on schedule, we look at your project, we lock something in, we'll just take that $500 off. So
yeah, tell them you saw us on Bridge Out Ahead.
Yep.
Yeah, we appreciate you doing that for our listeners too.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We really appreciated Brett stopping by to come share his story, share about Yeti Earthworks, and there's a lot that you can do. And what we were just talking about, you might run into these barriers and you feel like, oh, I can't do this because of I don't have my diploma, or you find these things. But a lot of times you can make your own path, get to where you're going, even though you might not really realize what needs to be done.
Yeah, it might not be the road you thought you were going to be on, but with determination and those sacrifices, you'll be right where you need to be.
This episode of Bridge Out Ahead is brought to you by Legacy Bridge Real Estate, brokered by Grand Properties. At Legacy Bridge, we believe real estate is one of the most powerful ways to build wealth. More importantly, to build your legacy. Whether you're buying your first home, selling a property, or looking to invest, our trusted team is here to walk with you every step of the way. Legacy Bridge Real Estate, where legacies begin. Today's theme music is We're Making Good Time by Jed LaPlante. Thanks for joining us today. And remember, no matter the detour you encounter, the road ahead is still yours to build. I'm Bridger Hopkins, and this is Bridge Out Ahead.